Hi, I'm Lee Maxey, CEO of MindMax, and I'm delighted to be here with Jazz Jackson, who's a very avid UPSIA attendee and been involved in online and delivery of online learning for a long time at Southern New Hampshire University and now at Thomas Edison, where he's the Vice Provost and Chief Student and Success and Experience Officer. And we'll be talking about retention, what things Thomas Edison does to help students complete what they start, and also talk about what you see going on in the future. And I'm looking for Nostradamus here. So as a junior Nostradamus now. But one of the things I love about what you guys are doing is making completion accessible.
Right.
And I know that's a big effort and a big focus. So can you talk to me about what drives that desire in your mission? Because I think that's really helpful to start with that.
Yeah. So Thomas Edison essentially main focus is how do we get students to the end, regardless of where they are and where they sit, by leveraging really their experience. And we do that in multiple different ways. We have, I say, different on-ramps for students to be able to come to Thomas Edison. We have online courses, we have TCEPs, and we also have, can't think of the name of it right now, but we have multiple different ways in which they can actually enroll at Thomas Edison. Not only that, we leverage a lot of the prior learning credits for students. So majority of our students come to our university with prior learning or some college no degree. And we offer a lot of flexibility and transferability,
Yep.
which allows for students that are really traditional, adult learners to be able to come to Thomas Edison. And so we really help some college no degree students finish their degree.
So they had some college, they've stopped out for a reason.
Right.
Something happened, and a lot of times it's just, I'll call it just life,
Yes.
but a lot of reasons. So in your role, I mean, you have an important role there. What kinds of things do you do to create scaffolding,
Yeah.
guardrails, a different experience for them that's going to have a different outcome?
Yeah. So when I first got to Thomas Edison, essentially my role was newly created because Thomas Edison essentially was um, a focus of degree aggregator, which essentially we had a subscription model. Our subscription model really allowed for students to come and go as they please, and paying one specific price. And so with the transition of the onboarding of the new president, the new provost, they created my position to really have a advocate to be able to think about literally from registration all the way up to completion and re-enrolling. And so my job has really been to how do we think about onboarding? And so we have a specific student success team that essentially serves as our one-stop shop of whatever question that students may have. We have that team to support them. In addition, we were able to develop an onboarding course, an online course, orientation course for our students, essentially developed to be able to be self-driven or self-directed, that students can be able to complete within 2 hours or less. What do they need to know? How to navigate on our LMS, how to leverage the services which we have, how to be able to understand our model, our mentor model, which is adjunct adjacent, but much different in regards to facilitation of courses, just answering questions. And being able to not only that, being able to understand the Thomas Edison model and the methods in which they can be able to leverage credits and take courses. So that's one thing. Another thing that we did was really being able to think about how do we support and build community for our students. And so we were able to get a grant from the state of New Jersey, from the education department, to be able to pilot a peer support program in which we were able to hire tutors as well as coaches, as well as a coordinator to be able to think about and support our students through their whole entire life cycle. As you indicated, most students stop enrolling because life happens. And then a lot of people have issues regarding motivation. And so our peer tutors, more specifically in math, English, and writing, are able to assist students in being able to understand and get support throughout their courses because, of course, writing predominantly makes the most rigor that's required within the online courses. And then math is always a challenge for students. So we saw a lot of engagement from that. And then our peer coaches support our students in a way that really allows for them to understand that they're not the only one that's going through these challenges. Other students have gone through similar challenges and they can overcome them in different ways.
So there's a lot there. So
Yes.
I'll start with as people on board. They're
Yeah.
coming from different places, different situations. What kind of diagnostic are you doing? Is that 2 hour session? Is that the diagnostic? What kind of diagnostic are you doing? And then, like, I think of a triage,
Yeah.
and then channeling or creating a path, a prescribed path, or a supportive path that's unique to them or in a category anyway.
So great question. We don't currently have a diagnostic or assessment to determine on where they are in their learning levels. Thomas Edison is an open enrollment institution. So because we have open enrollment, we technically don't have a diagnostic because essentially from a research perspective, we know that sometimes when you diagnose students, it impacts their ability to see what's the next step. And so what we do from an advising perspective is once we know what credit students are able to be able to take, they actually have the option to leverage advising or not leverage advising, but they have a prescriptive way in which, what are the courses in which we allow for them to take. And because we have so many transferability options, we don't have a lot of prerequisite for our courses, so students can be able to take courses when they want to take them. We have enrollments every month, so that allow for them to have a flexibility to be able to enroll as often as they would like. And then our courses for undergrad are 12 weeks.
That's great. That's great. To the peer groups. So you mentioned community, and I know from studies that I know of from the 90s up through now that online completion of online or self-study CD-ROM is generally very low unless there's engagement.
Right.
And one of the things that creates engagement is relationships with those who are studying with you.
Right.
So what kind of activities are those peers doing to feel engaged?
So great question. So when we originally rolled this program out, it was specifically for a specific population. But one of the things that we realized is that students, the specific population that we rolled it out for wasn't utilizing, so we rolled it out for the entire population. And now what we've realized that most of the students that actually utilize it are our new students. So we have an onboarding workshop that essentially, what are the best practices or the things to be successful for as a Thomas Edison student? Engage often, ask questions, leverage resources. And so that is probably the most well-attended workshop that we have the week prior to the term start. And then we also have workshops regarding how to do APA, how to leverage all of our services within the university. And they have a ask us any questions that you may have session, which allows for students to come in and whatever questions they have our either tutor or coach to answer any questions that they may have.
Something that I've seen work very well, recommended, is the concept of one stop.
Yeah.
So you're doing a one stop.
Yes.
How is it configured? How is it staffed? How do you measure success with your one stop?
So I say we have one stops in multiple different ways.
So like several one stops.
So we have several one stops. And you have to understand, because we are very much a different model than a traditional model. And then our students are very much self-driven. And so most of the time we have students that may not ever talk to anyone besides our admissions person, or we have students that may engage with a staff throughout the whole entire cycle. But what we want to do is, regardless of what their specific needs and how they engage, they're able to have a person to be able to support them in a personalized way, just based on their needs. Either our student success team, which is pretty much our one-stop shop for any questions that they have, if they have call in or send emails. And then we have our peer support program that actually supports them, and usually our after-hour supports, because we're a state institution. Our hours are usually from 8:30 to 4:30. So the peer support program supports them from usually those 4:30 until 2 and 3 p.m. 2 and 3 a.m.
Yep.
Essentially is where we see the most utilizations, from 8 p.m. to 1 and 2 a.m. And so they actually leverage those services. And then we have other aspects from our career development department because majority of our students are already working in field. So, or we have students that are in transition trying to get out of industry to work in other industries to be able to help them understand that aspect of it. And then we also want to provide accessibility for our students. And so we have the Office of Student Accessibilities that are providing accommodations to make sure not only do you have access, but you have the necessary support to be able to equalize.
You mean some of these students that stopped out needed accommodations? What a shocker.
And
Who knew?
And most of the time they don't know.
And they may not be aware of it themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Or what's possible.
Yeah, what's possible.
Right. Talk about your success. How things have been going.
So everything, we have seen ups and downs. I can probably say the peer support program has been our most successful program. We originally got funding in the beginning, and we've been able to work on getting services not directly integrated in our operational budget, but right now we've seen that about 7 to 9% of our students that actually leverage the peer support program are actually persisting at a higher rate than the students that are not utilizing it. And so that's a success story in itself. And so we've been essentially focusing on how do we increase engagement of students utilizing that program. Another area is we've rolled out a mental health program for our students, which has really been actively engaged during the pandemic and being able to support our students in different ways. And not only do we have success there, this particular vendor that we selected has provides insight regarding financial issues, childcare issues, and parental support, which is essential for our adult learners. So,
yeah, that holistic view, and I'm curious, and maybe this is outside of the area of where you focus, but employers, family, do you engage with the ecosystem that a student lives in to help them support and all succeed together?
So great question. Really, I try to put my student hat on in everything that I do. Really, my focus is to think in the mindset of a student, and the whole ecosystem in which we've created has been to be able to think about every individual aspect that we can be able to support the students. Prior to my appointment, there was no peer support program, no career development, no mental health support. And since I've been at Thomas Edison, all of those have been brought on in some shape or form, from getting grants, from getting state funding, really to fill in those gaps. And every time I look for specific vendors to support us, I always think with the adult student in mind, because they are experiencing different things that a traditional student, like they're supporting parents, they're supporting children. And so all of those things, and they're managing finances. All those are things that may impact their ability to be successful, and we want to be able to support them in those ways.
On that career/job placement, thinking of that relay zone, where they're still in school, maybe not at their next place. What kinds of things are you doing from a placement, job readiness, or new or different job readiness kinds of activities? What kinds of things are you doing?
So we have
or work with the workforce to come in and help.
Yep. So we have actually rolled out, it's been a year, we have actually a Job Hunters Club. We talked about engagement and the stickiness and the connection for our students. Our Job Hunter Club essentially was founded by our past director of career development to really bring all of our students, or students who are interested in being able to navigate this current workplace, to be able to discuss challenges, concerns, or best practices of being able to be in a work environment. And so we've seen probably about a 200% level of engagement, because students are actually wanting to know what that looks like. The second part is we're inviting employers in based on the level of interest and actually focusing on specific areas, more engineering and IT areas, to be able to support where their needs are, to have discussions with students of what are they looking for, to be able to help support them. And then now we're also, because we have a large veteran and military population, working with this particular population to offer workshops to help them understand how do they retool their resume to figure out how did that translate to be able to support them for employability outside of the military.
You're not an island. There's a lot of other schools in New Jersey.
Right.
how are you or are you working with other schools? And obviously, you have to do that with the credit for prior learning, transfer, and so forth.
Right.
But are there other innovative things where, like, you're good at some things, they're good at other things, where you're sharing? I'm using the word sharing,
Yes.
but sharing.
So, interesting enough, Thomas Edison is a special snowflake in New Jersey because of our intentional focus on adult learners
Yep.
and in the online space. I sit on a working group or community that focuses on student VPs of student affairs. And it's interesting because a lot of their focuses has always been issues with in-person issues like protests. And
Yep.
for me, I've luckily hadn't had to experience that,
Yep.
but I'm still learning about the challenges that they experience. I know our VP of Institutional Effectiveness works with a lot of institutions to develop articulation agreements to support enrollment. But from my perspective, I learn from what they're doing to figure out whether or not it articulates in my space. Not always the case. I think they're not always my people. And I've always been in that space where I'm always in online. And because I'm in online, it's when I'm meeting with other peers in the spaces, it doesn't always directly impact me.
Right. Well, things are getting hairy these days in the higher ed space. Where do you see things heading from your standpoint, from a student support and student success standpoint?
So I would potentially say that student success is always going to be important. If it wasn't important beforehand, it's definitely important now, more or less, because essentially, if we're experiencing this enrollment cliff in regards to enrollments, we have to be able to support and maintain the students that we have.
Yep.
And so really the focus is how do we continue to develop a holistic student support, which includes mental health support, career development, financial information, all of which are really supporting our students in a very intentional way. The second area is how do we look at AI and not as a threat, but how do we be able to enhance and be able to improve the equity gap that we've seen and we've all been working on student success to be able to support us in a way to be able to support us long term. And so that's in the discovery phase. And so I think that will allow for us to be able to move to the next stage of whatever this looks like and just being nimble, to be able to be flexible regardless of what's happening in the environment, to be able to think about short term, long term, and in between.
Yep, I think you guys are positioned to be more nimble than most, for sure.
For sure.
So yeah, and not a lot of institutions can do that.
Yes.
So. Any closing thoughts or final thoughts?
My final thoughts essentially is we are in the business of changing the lives of students, and so I think any way we can do that to provide access, to provide support, and do it in a way that is cost effective, then that's what we have to do. I mean, that's how I got an education, really, was to change the lives of people. I still love what I do because while I'm a background person, it's commencement is my favorite time of the year because we're able to see all of our work come to fruition.
So when I think of jazz, I think of a background person. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that ain't happening a whole lot. Come on, man.
I say background because I'm not student facing anymore. While I support everyone in the student facing area, I don't get the stickiness, closeness that I had when I was in the classroom.
When you were hands-on.
Yeah,
right,
so
right. I understand.
I call myself the Olivia Pope of student success without the scandal. So I solve and fix problems for people in a way that usually you don't know who's doing it, but it's happening. And so I'm the fixer.
You may want to find a
better analogy.
Where you don't have to say without the scandal.
Without the scandal.
Yeah. If you can just do someone that does it.
I'm the fixer.
There you go.
I'm the fixer. That's what I do. I solve problems for all of our students within the ecosystem of Thomas Edison.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jazz.
Thank you,
this
sir.
is great.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.